Okay, hello, Eric. Hello, chat.
Hey,
Welcome to another one of Vagabond Dog's illustrious industry chats. Today's guest is a good friend of ours. I guess you've known Vagabond Dog for a good while now. Actually, I mean, almost our entirety. I'd say
yeah,
20.
maybe.
Maybe not like early, but like very for a good long time. We know
Yeah,
you.
well,
We know
ever
you
since
through the
your
Mega
first
Booth
packs, yeah.
since our first packs, right? So that would have been That's almost like the entirety. Like we were we were pretty fresh. Like we I think we did our first packs in 2013 or something like that. Jake, you can correct me. I see you in the chat. He says hi. Um,
Hey, what up, Jake?
it's been quite a ride. We've been good friends ever since. Why don't you I guess give people a quick rundown of what you did with the Mega Booth and how we know you and what you're doing now.
Sure, yeah. So I've been with the Mega Booth since their second one in 2012, for PAX West. Um, I've kind of created and helped the volunteer efforts for the Mega Booth. So anytime you see the volunteers like helping out other developers, kind of corralling people to the games that they kind of want to see, informing people on the floor, set up, tear down. That's kind of the stuff that I helped out with, coordinating all of that, scheduling that, finding the people, and then kind of like getting that all together. Um,
It's a
it's
big effort.
been super. Yeah, it's been super fun though. It's been awesome. I'm kind of right now. What I'm doing is, so funny enough, the Mega Booth has always been a volunteer thing for me as well. I've always worked doing something else for actual funds, paying rent and things like that. Right now, I manage the community support team for online cycling platform called Zwift, and I've been
Okay.
doing that for about 6 years. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing. It's a cycling training MMO, if you can put it that way.
Okay.
And it's been a wild ride. No pun intended. I did
uh,
I didn't mean that one.
well, I mean that's very interesting. I am curious to hear about the cycling world. But I guess first I have some questions about what it's like. I guess first coming into an organization as a volunteer, and then you know managing volunteers for something like the Indie Megabooth. Because it's not a lot of people don't realize, at PAX and events like this, a lot of positions like the enforcers are largely volunteer oriented, and I'm very curious to understand that side of the fence because I'm usually on the exclusively on the developer side. Um,
So it's really cool. I came into it kind of, I've known Kelly for quite some time, and I had my own booth with when the first Mega Booth hit in PAX East. I had, I was running my own booth with my own company, or not my own company, but I was running the booth. And when West came around, and I didn't actually have anything to do. I didn't have a booth at West. I didn't feel like just being an attendee. I asked Kelly if she needed any help, and I would, before I showed up, and what I could do. And that's kind of how it all started off. She was trying to run all this stuff, and as well as coordinate like a handful of people that she had gotten to help out and volunteer. So, you know, she was like, "Hey, Eric, I gave all these people your phone number. They're gonna call you for passes, and you just tell them what to do." And that's kind of how it started. Coming at it from a volunteer side, it's different. Obviously, very different from being a dev. It's great because you really get to, I hate to say it, but you really get to fan out, right? You get to talk to all these devs. You get to play a ton of these games, and while you're not necessarily showing a game, you're helping them, and that's
Hmm.
always been, my big thing. I've been in community for quite some time. I started at Harmonix as a community moderator, and helping devs and helping people kind of show their hard work has always been my bread and butter. And funny enough, tons and tons of fans feel the same way, and that's I thought it would be really hard to find people who would want to volunteer for this kind of thing, but we had to turn people away just because you get like 60, 70 people asking to jump on, and it's great because they're all eager, they're all stoked. That's
Yeah.
the kind of attitude you want.
No, that's something we can definitely we definitely recognize. Like throughout all of our showings, we've always had a great experience with our volunteers. Like we, especially in our early years, like we showed up wildly unprepared. Like we would forget a lot of basic things. We'd not we're not like we're not a big company. It's not like we can really afford to send everybody out of the booth to go do some big interview, right? And then like leave the
Yeah.
whole thing unattended. And these are things that like um, we didn't really like plan for, but I think the volunteer program kind of like bridged that gap. Like we'd be able to like hey, can you just watch our booth for like 5-10 minutes while we go and do this interview, or like none of us have had a bathroom break in like an hour or a couple, and that was really really essential. um I guess for me as like I have a hard time like I guess it's a very selfish mentality, but like I show up to these shows and I'm like very focused on my game. um but a volunteer shows up to the shows and they're focused on a lot of people's games, and
Hmm.
they get a lot of satisfaction out of the experience of one just being there, but also that help that to support the industry and support the developers. Um, I want to ask you, I guess, where does that come from for you personally? Like, where does that drive to help others sort of like start?
I don't know. I guess it's always been kind of like that. I love seeing people succeed, and if I can have a hand in that somehow, whether it's you know letting them go to the bathroom, or if I my experience setting up booths, what to prepare, if that information helps them have a better show, then it's also kind of it's kind of those weird things that the selflessness of being a volunteer has its roots in selfishness, and that it makes you feel good to help, to know that you've had a hand in having someone else have a
Right.
good show. And it's a really great feeling to know that you've contributed positively. And indie developers, they've always created the games that have intrigued me the most. They're I'm not saying AAA sucks or anything like that. I mean, I play games. I love them, right? Um, but I've never, the ones that really that wow me with like those personal touches, and, and anything I can do to help them out that's where it comes from, really. You know, I see a little bit of myself there. I'm not a coder. I've had tried my hand at some game design and it's worked out okay. It's been okay, but I see, someday I would love to do something like that. Wouldn't it be great if I had someone to help me along that in that route?
Yeah. It's that's this there's this very strong myth in the industry of the solo dev, or that it's like this one person has this game idea, they build it themselves and then they release it and then it's all theirs. But it really does sort of one. I take issue with it because like I think it's a complete falsehood, right? um
Mm.
this idea that like anybody gets to the top of Steam on their own is like
Oh yeah.
ludicrous, right? They never mind the actual game production, but all of these the people who help along the way, at shows, in the community, moderators, all this, these individuals, give a little bit of energy, boom, 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 until there is a success. But the culture that we have in games still wants to idolize and like make great beings or great people out of the front people. Why do you think that is?
It's easier, like the narrative. It makes it an easier narrative. It lets people focus on like one person, whether it's like the solitary dev or whether it's like, oh, I'm the creative genius behind XYZ. And I'll say this: I think a lot of times, um, it, I there are two things I want to have a preface for. Is like, I'm not trying to discredit any media. They have a story they want to tell, and it's usually to try to elevate a game and kind of like show a light onto people who work really hard. And then not and some of those devs who sometimes get elevated, it's they just happen to be the ones that are comfortable talking to people and
Mm,
kind of showing things off. And I don't think that necessarily they're trying to take the limelight or be the solitary single spokesperson for whatever team. But people grab onto that because it's easier. It's easier to look at a single person with a strong or really positive personality and be like, oh no, that's the person.
right.
He or she or they are the ones that really like drove that forward. And sometimes when there's like, no, there's like all these other people here, that are busy coding and testing and writing and all this stuff. We wouldn't have a game without them. They're like, yeah, no, I get it, but you're the one that's talking. I want to talk to you right now.
Right. Do you think that it creates unreasonable expectations for people who are like stepping into making games?
I think it does for sure. Um, some people don't want to bring on that help because they're like, no, I this person was able to do it all on their own, so why can't I? And then when they hit that wall, they don't realize it takes a village, right? You have family, you have friends that are there supporting you. You have artists and writers or other coders or other people that are willing to that hopefully you're paying that are that are willing that are stepping in to help you out. And it's a huge team effort. Every successful game I've seen, um, it's always been a group effort, you know
Right.
to get that off the ground.
Um, do you think there's a way that like as a studio or maybe as an individual who does get thrust into that limelight, one could um, do a good job of making sure that unrealistic expectation doesn't get built, and that like I've seen, it's one thing to like be like, oh, talk well about your team and the people who have supported you, but like you said, the media very often has a story to tell, and I've personally seen situations where that's come in a way that like they even if you mention the hard work of the team, they don't pick up on it. It's like they got closed ears. I'm curious if there's anything you think the industry or studios could do better to, like, I guess, deflate that myth, and maybe
Yeah,
throw a little more thanks around.
yeah. Well, one I will say this: it's not that it's not unique to indie developers, but I see it more often, where and recently too, when because people are used to it now, right? They're used to the kinds of questions. They're used to they're used to this potential for like a cult of personality to kind of build up. I mean, that sounds really negative, and it's not really that bad. But the, so I've seen a lot of studio heads or creative directors who make who take really who take really they put in a lot of effort to showcase the talents of everyone that works on the project, and you can't ignore that when 50 more than 50% of the conversation you're constantly telling people how good your team is and what they've done,
Right.
how they've helped out. And I'm gonna I'll name a name here, one person in particular. I'll just that I think does such a wonderful job is Tanya Fox at Kit Fox. She's you know she on Twitter and other stuff, she's done such an amazing job of highlighting the contributions of everyone she works with, and kind of hoping to dispel a lot of the myths of creating games in an indie environment.
Right.
So I and other people have definitely done that as well. So I think it's getting better for sure. And I think with a more diverse media, as it were, people who are reporting it, they want the whole picture. They want to talk about all the people. They want to give credit to everyone they can, and I think it's becoming easier for sure.
Interesting. Um, and so you say this is using Tanya as an example. It's not just in media interviews, but in I presume social media posts and other forms of conversation.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I see it happen I see it happen during the mega booth as well. A lot of teams, it's the whole team that's there,
Right.
right? And I think everyone is, they understand that now. In the very beginning, we'd have a lot of people who had never shown before, and they don't know exactly how to interact with the public necessarily. Who wants to do all the talking, or it's like, okay, well, it's easiest for this guy to do the talking, so we'll just be in the background troubleshooting stuff if things break. And as time has gone on, the collective information has reached out to more and more people. People understand what a good show is and how to put your best face forward. Um, I think that teams are getting have gotten super jazzed about being there, about interacting with the people who are going to play their game, and it's not just one person that's doing all the talking now. It's everybody, and that's huge. And that's one of the things that's big about the mega booth, about seeing other indie developers, whether or not they're part of the mega booth. People understand that I'm not talking to a hired person that helps show off the game. I'm talking to someone who's worked on this. In some way, shape, or form, they've helped create the thing I'm doing, and the fans understand that more and more.
Right. I mean, so this is all really good at like for I guess dividing praise amongst the team that works on the game, but I'm also curious. Like, I try and think about like all of the people who helped us with our games, and to include everybody's name in the credits, like it would just it would go on and on and on and on forever. So like, what do you do in this instance where it's in order to like, what is the appropriate way to give thanks, or is that just intrinsic in the volunteer helpful spirit, that you just know that like the amount of thank, like it's just that you can give the in-person thanks, but there's no eternal record of it. It doesn't need to be
I think
remedied.
I think it's that second half, at least for me. I don't want to speak for anyone else. I don't need. I mean, it's nice, sure, but I don't need that. Um, I the in person thanks is good enough. It's it's I'm not doing it to get on the record anywhere. I never did it to like get my name out. I did it just because I thought it was the thing that you needed to do, and it's the thing that other people needed help with. And it's kind of cherry on the top. I like having my picture taken at the end of every mega booth and every
Those are
PAX
fun.
with the whole group, and that's really awesome. But oh man, it's so cliched, right? It's the treasure of the friend is the pirate treasures are the friends you made along the way.
Right, right,
But
right,
it's true. Like
right.
I've made some of my closest friends, because you're going through a trial by fire.
Mm.
Everyone, it's hell. It's wonderful, but it's also hell. You're up at odd hours. You're there early, bleary-eyed. You're trying to make all these industry connections, or trying to like, get people to talk to each other, and then you're on the floor and you're talking to people, 8 hours, and so you forge these bonds, and that's what's really awesome. That's the biggest takeaway I've gotten.
Right.
Like with you, for example.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Right. Um.
Ah,
I mean, PAX is hell, but it is a hell I've always enjoyed a lot. Like, I don't know. Like a lot of man, it boggles my mind. We'll be on day 4 of a West or something, and like
oh my god.
everybody's beaten tired, and I'm like. I know it's going to be over soon, and that has still always made me sad. Like, because as taxing as the whole process is, those days go by so fast because
Yeah.
like they're so full, and it's something I think if PAX doesn't return to the way it once was, I don't know how I'm gonna feel about that. I'm very very glad and very grateful to have been to the last East, but I'm curious. What are your thoughts? Well, I guess it's been announced now that PAX is going to be a digital event this year.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, on the one hand, I'm like, of course it is. That's the safest way. I am
Yes.
part of me, especially, my wife especially was like, so glad you didn't catch anything at PAX East because that's like at the cusp, right?
Mm-hmm.
I completely avoided Concrud, amazingly enough. But at the same time, so of course it's smart to do it digitally. That's the safest way of doing it. But PAX, whether it's East or West, has always been a highlight of my year, both of them. I take vacation time from my day job to go work.
To go through hell.
Yeah, but it's so much fun.
Yeah.
It is. It's a connection that I miss. Man, it's so disappointing. Um, it's not just seeing old friends and and kind of like helping people out. I love seeing the fans discover something new that they've never heard about before, seeing the next generation of people, discovering that there are games for them through indie developers.
Mm.
It's not just the latest Call of Duty or team shooter or whatever it is, right? I mean, those are great, and I'm not trying to disparage them, but like for weird, quirky narrative games, there's way more people that really want those than you ever thought possible. People who didn't even know that they were a thing until they're like, until they discover them, and then it's just like, oh, their brain explodes. That's what I miss,
Right.
and you can't get that on a digital only. You can do so much with it, but that kind of natural discovery
Mm-hmm.
is, I think it's a tragedy that we're losing that.
Yeah, I've been studying the digital events that have been happening recently. You had like well, I mean to call it an event, like Devolver's Expo Land game thing, and then very recently Amaze Berlin did this really incredible, like it's a full 3D environment with booths and everybody can walk around in it and chat and everything. And then I think Gamescom this year has almost like a Habbo Hotel style
Wow.
interface where every indie developer gets their own like room that they can like design. Um, and I through all that, like, with Amaze in particular, it was like as close to the real festival as I've possibly seen.
That's really cool.
It was fantastic. Like they had big screens with live streams and like running content, and then there's like booths with like demos that go straight to your computer. And it was the closest to the actual festival I've seen, but you still don't have like I don't know. There's something about online chat that like it's not like that. Have you seen this? Come follow me, right?
Yeah.
I'll lead you there. I still found that didn't really happen. Um, there's which is I don't know. There's something about that physical proximity that like makes people excited and share and really easily communicate that because their emotion towards something that you can't get over a text
Oh
chat so
yeah.
well. Um, so it's like, um, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of like hesitant. I love these digital conferences because they are open to so many more people. But at the same time, they just they don't feel the same for me.
Yeah. No, I definitely see that they're definitely, more people can participate, and the more people that can participate, that's always better.
Hmm.
But you're right, some of my favorite moments are when, someone's stopping at the HQ. They're asking, "Oh, I'm looking for XYZ game." And then, you show them where it is, and they're talking to a friend of theirs, and they're looking at the map, and then all of a sudden another friend just comes running down the aisle like, "Oh my God, you got to see this thing! This is amazing!" And then they grab them, and then they run.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's missing in these. You got to evolve with the times. I think that's true. So maybe there's some way to recapture that. I don't know what it is. I'm not smart enough to figure that one out.
Right. Right. If we could figure this out, we'd have already done it.
Yeah, we'd be rich. It'd be great. But
Uh,
and it's even as on a personal level too. You know, on my bathroom breaks that take sometimes 30 minutes, sometimes just out of
just to
waiting
get
in
across
line.
the hall.
Yeah, I'll see things that I make my way. I make a circuitous route to get there just so I can see. Oh, what's over here? I haven't been down this aisle. What's over here? I haven't been down this aisle. And I'll always discover something. They're like, okay, I'm gonna pause and I want to watch this. I want to take a look at this. I want to hear what this person's saying, whether
Right.
it's tabletop or a different game or something like that. And I don't know how you would do that in that kind of environment. It's really cool to hear that, like Amaze and Gamescom, how they really kind of tried to recreate a space.
Hmm.
I think that's super awesome. I didn't even think about that. And I'd love to see how that evolves. As time goes on.
Yeah, because I mean, I think it's definitely more of the right way to go. Because like comparing to what do you call it? Steam's Spring Game Festival with like here's 900 demos. The algorithm will point you to the right ones, and you will enjoy. Or like the recent Xbox one where it's like we've got fewer games, but like you've got opportunity to check them all out, but there's still no place for conversation outside of our normal social media, Discord channels, Twitch conversation, that kind of thing. Um, and so it's very interesting to see these spaces try and get recreated. I just I still don't feel like they're perfectly replacing the physical yet. Because it's
Yeah, no.
it's tough. Um, but I mean, it's just one of these things that the convention scene it has to evolve through. Um,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and I'm curious, as somebody who's been with PAX for such a long time, like, are there any periods of change that you think are close to as drastic as what's happening these days?
No, I can't. Yeah, no. There's no. The only thing that we've done in the physical space is logistics.
Mm.
Dealing with, um, you know, getting things to the right booth on time, or quick changes of space. Uh, you know, those are yeah. This is unprecedented, man.
Right. What are when you say there were big logistical changes? Like, what are some of the biggest changes that you've seen over the? I don't want to say 10 years. It's not 10 years yet. Like 8 years.
Yeah, it's
8 years you've been in.
almost
Almost 10 years.
almost.
You've been
Yeah.
doing this.
I
Yeah.
would
What are some of the
say
biggest changes?
Oh man, yeah, the size of the booth for sure. One of the big ones was creating the mini booth and trying to constantly figure out the best way of displaying all those games. We went through like desks with computers, um, and now people sitting down for them to those like IKEA things that we were still using for the longest time. Um, and then trying to arrange them in a way that allowed the maximum amount of people through. It's always about the logistics really revolve around how can we get people, the most amount of people to see the most amount of games without, running into some kind of traffic jam.
Right.
Um, and the big change, the big difference obviously between West and East there, it's always with West, we're in a corner, but we're kind of in a dedicated spot. So you have these routes that where you just there's only one way in and then one way out, one direction, and so it's easy to get people there. It's just hard to move them through. On East, it's just huge. It's everywhere. You're just smack dab in the middle. But then it's hard to like, how do we unify everything? How do we get it? Hey, here's the mega booth. Here's the games that are here. Here's the space. So those are the big logistical problems that we've had. And then, as the size of conventions, continue to increase, especially with the number of days. Yeah, that's just how do you keep people alive for 4 days?
Coffee and prayers.
Cough drops and
Right. Hand sanitizer. Are there any big cultural changes that you've noticed over this almost a decade?
Um, I mean, we're seeing we've seen a lot more foreign. Well, for us,
Mm-hmm.
outside of U.S. and even then like
International.
outside of North America, um, developers come in and that's been awesome. That's been one of the biggest, coolest things I've seen. Because they're bringing in a perspective that we don't see often. We're so closed off. Now literally more than anything else. But and it's always great to see like whether they're from South Korea or from India or from anywhere else, just to kind of it's a worldwide thing, right? It's a lot of
Right.
people are coming here to show off what it is they have. So that's been the biggest cultural shift is that more and more people feel comfortable coming here. Maybe not anymore, but back then it
Right.
was great.
Right. Jake says the recipe is coffee, Mountain Dew gamer fuel, some water, and then not drinking excessive amounts of alcohol at night.
Yeah, it took me a long time to learn that last one.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole nother side of PAX, but like it definitely is available, accessible, and not any. Jake says not any. Don't drink any. It's definitely wears you out for the next day. But again, there's a lot of fun to be had at the shows. Um, but international developers coming into the scene, that actually now that you mentioned it is something that I've noticed as well. And the cool thing about that is you get a broader range of like games, types of games. The more different ideas coming into the space, which is always fun. I mean, nobody goes to the Indie Megabooth to see, some indie developer's version of, this game that's been done 1,000 times. It's fun to see a new ideas and these kinds of things. So that's very, very, very cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Has I'm curious though, did the I presume almost all of the volunteers were from the U.S.
Well, no, the majority
Right.
is, but we've had a couple people from the UK who volunteered almost every year. That was kind of amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Someone that was a volunteer for our one showing at Gamescom, Chris Wolf. You know, volunteered the next year in the U.S. and we all thought, Chris, what are you doing? This is a very long trip for you. And then he just kept showing up, and now he's in the industry,
Right.
which is fantastic. You know, I think PAX in general has gotten uh, more interest from the international community, and that that ends up showing uh, that ends up being that there are more international volunteers. It's still not a huge number, but when it comes time to pick volunteers, just by trying to figure out who can make it and who can help out, I give a lot of deference to people who are already planning on traveling
Right.
to the U.S. just to experience PAX. You know, we try to create as diverse a group of people as we can. Because the greater points of view you have, the better you're able to help everyone. You know.
Mhm. Jake is Jake. If you're still in chat, Jake, what are your fond memories of the year you volunteered for me? Okay, let's do a quick peer review. How was Jake as a volunteer the year he came down? Was he good? Was he any good? I mean, I hear these
Jake
great
was
stories from
great.
him. He was good, really?
Yeah, Jake was great. Jake was willing to do anything, do whatever it took to help out. Um, aside from him, insulting the Bruins or the Celtics,
Right.
he was great.
It was great, mostly great. So he says he fetched a lot of coffee. Okay. Um,
Which that is a huge deal. That is
essential.
a huge deal. Yeah.
Is that is that common? Like, again, I'm far too selfish to ever consider volunteering. But do other developers like often return the favor that way, or
Oh yeah. Some of them, if they didn't make it into the booth or their game wasn't quite ready, they would ask the volunteer to kind of experience it. Um, I'll say this: 99.99% of our volunteers are awesome. We've had maybe less than five that might have been not as great as we had hoped. But game dev volunteers always, I feel like they know whether they are from AAA or they haven't shown yet or they've shown before. They know the hell that showing a game with a small team is, and so
right,
they go above and beyond,
right, right.
often to help out. Yeah.
Jake says he had an advantage as a volunteer because he knew how things worked, and he was surprised not many devs had cardboard signs. For those who don't get that reference, like our first packs, we like didn't have any signage for our game, so we ended up like I think we got one of the volunteers to like go and steal a bunch of cardboard from like the recycling area, and we just like wrote a ton of like handmade signs, and then had like people who played the game like write quotes and stuff, and we just like pinned that to the wall, and it made a very effective booth for that time. I don't think we I don't yeah, it's something that we've kind of like retained tradition on these days. I kind of like it.
I think when you involve your audience in
Mm,
something like that, man, you're gonna get a lot of people that yeah, they just want to do a thing,
right,
but then they're gonna play your game,
right.
right? And that's huge. I just thinking of that just reminds me of Will, Mandy's Will O'Neill's first show. He's just there by himself,
Yeah,
and he's just standing there holding this box of pins. He's not saying anything. He's just standing in front of his computers
yeah.
and just holding the box of pins. I didn't, and then at one point I came up to him and was like, "Hey man, how's it going? You've been standing here all day. Do you need to use the bathroom?" He's like, "That would be awesome." I was like, "Cool, I'll watch your booth for you. What should I do? What do I need to know? Just hold this box. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Just hold the box."
because I mean, people don't remember he had that big banner that like it was a paragraph long. Like, and anybody who
Yeah,
was it was it was insane. Like, it was great. Like, I can't. It was like if I made this game for the kind of people who would stand here and read this banner, knowing full well oh man, it was beautiful. Um, yeah, that that first PAX, I remember that show. um, I mean, it was a fun. I mean, like everybody's first show is always like sort of amazing and sort of a disaster at the same time. Like but like overcoming those challenges is like the thing that I get. Like one, it sort of like defines you as a creator slash studio, right? Like we've carried that cardboard aesthetic like to heart for way too long. Like even though we're like not necessarily that like down and fresh anymore, we still love it. But it also
It's your
like
roots, man.
it flavors you and it makes it kind of wonderful. Is there anything about the volunteer program that like sort of started that way? Like where you started unprepared and then had to like patchwork a solution that sort of like became a permanent fix.
I feel like we tried so much stuff and we realized what worked and what didn't. It's constantly a learning experience. We would do so much for people in the beginning until we realized like okay, let's go back to logistics. Logistically it just wasn't feasible, and in the end it was better when the devs did some things on their own. A couple things that we used to do. We used to run the Staples. There was a Staples at PAX West, not that far. It's still there, and buy converters. There's a bunch of teams,
international power converters.
Yeah, who would be like, "Oh, your plugs are different from ours," and just be like, "Oh my god." Or just like, "Oh, I forgot my USB drive. Do you guys have one?" And so we'd have to run and get one. We would buy giant things of water so that we could pass them out. We tried to buy food for people so that they could stay on the floor if they wanted to, and that ended up just being everyone's eating really cold pizza, and it's just not a good, it's not a good experience. So there was a lot of stuff where we would attempt something to try to make it work, and then in the end, it's just like, be like, hey, if someone needs to go run and get a sandwich, you just help cover for them. That's totally fine. Don't buy the sandwich for them and then hope to get reimbursed, because they're not going to rip you off, but they're probably going to be talking to 9,000 people and you'll never get paid back.
Right.
And all of a sudden they'll be like, "Hey, where'd the volunteer go? I finally have my money." And you're like, "Oh, they're off shift."
Right.
So, there's a lot of that. It was like scaling back a couple things to make the things that we did do better and more efficient. Like, okay, we can't provide water to everyone, but you know what we can do? Cough drops. We can buy big bags of cough drops. That's almost as good. We can stand in time. Stand there so that they can go and do the things that they need to do. If they need to go do an interview, they can go do an interview. That sort of thing. And so we that was a lot of the learning process that we had. It's like, don't do everything, right?
Right.
Because not to throw any devs under the bus or anything like that. They're gonna take it because you're desperate. You have such a limited amount of energy to do all these things that anytime someone's going to offer you a helping hand, of course you're going to take it. That just makes sense. And if we can't deliver on that help, if we couldn't do it, then that just sucks. It sucks for everyone involved.
Right. And then you don't want to build expectation and especially as the booth continues to scale, or like the number of devs continue to scale, it gets brutal. I mean, like I can definitely say, like, we've been very happy for some handouts, like this headset. We were like, we didn't have headsets one year. We just went to Logitech and we were like, "Hey guys, how's it going?" And I'm still using it. Oh man, the number
this mouse is from the Megabooth at some point.
the number of controllers I've had to borrow. That's the thing. Like, by our I'd say, God, I wish I could say by our second show, but probably by our like third or fourth show, like, we finally had like we know our checklist, and like we're locked down on like on everything that we need to know and bring. But you even still, our last show, like, we didn't remember tape and like safety pins and like these are like essential things, you know. We had some furniture to build, and like we didn't bring screwdrivers or anything. And of course, like there's like only 2 screwdrivers in the entire, you know, like 100-mile radius. But it's the way it goes.
And it's always borrowed by someone.
Of course, yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, Megabooth is about the games. So I am curious, what have you been playing, and what are you enjoying these days, my good sir?
Oh man. So this is I've been needing that escapism lately.
Yes, is the world a harsh and brutal place?
So you know, I've been playing through finally the Yakuza games. So I was like, okay, I didn't realize how long they were. So I'm like, I'm gonna pick up Yakuza 0 for $15. Everyone keeps talking about this. I am 50 hours into this game, and you know, people are like, "Oh, well, what do you think of the game?" I was like, "Well, the game's great. I think the dialogue's awesome, sure, but I love this management sim they built in the middle of this game, and I can't stop playing it."
I've had it installed and waiting for me to start it. Convince me this is the one I need to go next.
Oh my god, dude, the dialogue alone,
Okay.
like okay, I'll go from shaking down or you know, beating up some punks in the middle of a street who are trying to shake down some poor dude, like just whipping their ass, and then I will go to having a discussion about tax theory in Tokyo in the 80s for you know, from the person I rescued, and then I'm gonna go to a karaoke bar, and they do not skimp on the karaoke minigame. And then there's a discotheque where you can dance, and then because there's 2 characters in Yakuza 0, one of the management sim in this game is a cabaret club management game where you run a hostess bar.
Okay.
And you're trying to match the patron with the right hostess, but not, you know, but make sure that their energy levels are high and that, you know, and that the drinks are flowing. It's just, it's a Sega game, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's, you know, what do you call it? There's an actual Sega arcade built in, and you can play Outrun, and you can play Space Harrier, and you can play these UFO machines. It's ridiculous. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, and it never. Though the main story is appropriately dramatic for like a Yakuza style story, it veers wildly into like hilarious moments that, you know, that are just the perfect timing to break it up, to make it light and not constantly be this overbearing heavy thing. It's awesome. I am so sad I slept on it for so long.
I'm always intrigued by these kinds of games from a development side, because it's like, how many different game systems are you going to build in your game? And it's something that's like really hard for indies to do. Like we tried it and barely succeeded with ASM and Sam, but like to build like 15 different types of game scenes, you know, like, and do them well is such a challenge.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine the size of the team they have. I mean, it's Sega, right? So you know, the closest parallel I had for the longest time was Shenmue.
Right.
You know, so it has, you know, it feels like a modern. Well, I mean, I guess there's the new Shenmue, which I just haven't played it yet.
Right.
But you know, it feels like it. You know, it has that same. The dialogue and the voice acting is 1,000 times better. Like it's
right.
of an incredible quality. But yeah, it's there. You know, I'm reading this comment here in the chat. There's so much heart, and that's true. It is a game that you can't help but know that the people who made it loved every second of making this game.
Interesting. Well, I think I might have to actually open it. I've had it like. I asked Jake and Will about these games probably like in April or May, and I just like I got it for like $15 probably, and then I sat there being like It's because it seems like such a commitment to get into, and I'm scared of commitment these days. I'm very scared of games that demand a lot out of me. Like
Yeah,
I'm really enjoying playing games again for the first time since like starting Sam. Like I spent a long time like avoiding games, and then lately I've been really enjoying playing things and finishing things. And so I've been staying way clear of anything multiplayer. Been staying way clear of anything that's infinite, or like
yeah.
procedural levels or these kinds of things. But I've also suddenly been staying clear of anything that's like 60 to 80 hours of gameplay.
Dude, so let me tell you, I thought it was just a third-person action game.
Right.
Right? I did no research on it other than like people talked a lot about it, and it's a long-running series, so there's got to be something to it.
Hmm.
The visuals like really drew me to it. Just how the combination of you know very stark Yakuza style, and then just like, oh, this dude's wearing a leisure suit and he's doing a disco dance. So I was like, okay, cool, that sounds great. I'm totally in. And then as I started playing it, I was like, okay, I'm on like act 8. How long is this game? This seems more like a role playing game than an adventure action, third
Right.
person action adventure game, like an open world game that I thought it was. And I look it up, I was like, oh, it is an RPG. I didn't. If I did my research, I would have known that. If you wanted to complete every side quest, um, which involves things like buying shoes for someone because they're running around, doing errands and their feet hurt, things of that, to like rescuing people from being kidnapped and forced into sex slavery. Like it runs like the gamut. you know, um, you know, uh, there's like, oh yeah, if you want to do every single side quest and do everything, you're looking at about 160 hours.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot of game.
Yeah, that's a
Uh,
lot of game, but
and
you can complete everything in about 40.
okay, yeah, great. Uh, Zedcraze says Yakuza 0, Kiwami, and Kiwami 2 are on Game Pass right now, which is a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
And Jake says you don't need to do it all. Yeah, no,
No, you don't.
yeah, okay. I don't imagine to. I think it's important to like know that going into these kinds of games, because like you tend to want to do as much as you can like right off the bat. Get all 5 stars, that kind of thing. But if you know that doing that is going to take you 200 plus hours, like maybe you just like want to go for the main story and call it a day.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, okay, this will probably get me some angry responses, but it's a very typically Japanese like designed game
Mhm.
because there's so many scenes and so many things that aren't skippable,
Right.
and dialogue options that you have to wait and then move through, and it gets to me. Like the user interface in a lot of things is really clunky because they try to keep it in game, but it's not quite. Like if you go into certain stores, you can't change the camera angle, so you just kind of have to navigate after a
Oh,
while by memory where you need to go. It's weird. It jumps back and forth, but these things are small compared to like how good it is. And it's true. There's a lot of stuff you can easily skip. The problem, of course, is that they just make it so weirdly compelling, like these little slice of life, little like side quests and stuff, where you're just
right.
like, oh well, this poor dude just got, his girlfriend just broke up with him. And now he's asking me, giant scary Yakuza guy, to help him win her back. So now I'm going to have to sing karaoke and poorly on purpose to make him look better. It's like weird stuff like that. And it's like, but this is awesome. This is such a weird, dumb side quest, but it's so cool that they put that in there.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden you're like, I just spent 60 hours in this game and I'm halfway through.
So it sounds like that is taking up the majority of your gaming time. Is there anything else you've been playing?
I picked up Ghost of Tsushima
Okay.
um, because of the setting. I've never played anything like that,
Yeah.
and it's reminding me of a medieval Japanese Far Cry.
Okay.
It's a solid open world game. It's got really good mechanics. It's absolutely gorgeous. Um, and then I saw, I was about to attack this camp, and I saw a bear wander in, and kill a bunch of people.
That's very
And I
Far
saw a
Cry.
body ragdoll over the top of the wall, and I laughed straight for a minute. I'm like, okay, that's exactly what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this weird interaction between the open world and I can just kind of watch. I don't know how far I'm gonna get in it.
Right.
There's a lot to it, but
Okay. Anything in the indie realm?
I'm still working my way through Disco Elysium.
Okay. That's another one that I've had installed, waiting for me for a long time, and I've been afraid to jump into because I know it's a little bit of a time commitment.
It is, but I'll tell you, I've never played anything like it.
No? Okay, goddamn.
No, never. The dialogue in that game is among the wildest and best in for what I was expecting to be initially just kind of I mean, playing it at PAX actually, was like, I'm a coffee cup. I'm having an entire conversation with a coffee cup who's insulting me.
Okay.
And it's and it is it's as wild as that, and it's phenomenal. It's probably up there with one of the best games I've played. But it is a lot. It takes a lot out of you to kind of go through it. So I've been doing it in piecemeal for sure.
Okay. And what are you looking forward to? Nothing.
No, it's gonna be. I haven't been keeping up too much with the new stuff other than like what people are talking about, but I watched that PS5 announcement, Bug Snacks. I'll say it.
Our chat is very into...
I'm really looking forward to Bug Snacks.
Zed Craze is a big fan of Bug Snacks. He loves Bug Snacks, especially the theme song. It's
the theme song's amazing.
It's his favorite. This stream is now canceled. Great.
I have a 3-year-old, and so I think that this will be a game that he will love to watch me play.
Right. Yeah, I have literally no idea what the actual gameplay is like. I just like the vibe, and the song is amazing.
It looks ridiculous, and like that's right up my alley. Like, I don't understand what's happening, but food are bugs, and when you eat them, part of it becomes you. Then
Yes.
Okay, that's all I needed. That's all I needed. That sounds right up my alley.
No, I've been recently messing around with some stuff in Unity, and I did a stream not too long ago where if people typed Bug Snacks in the chat, then the theme song would start playing. But if Zed Craze or anybody typed in eject, it would stop the playing, and it was just this constant battle because Zed Craze actually hates the theme song because he has no inner light anymore. I don't know if it's something about him being Australian or what, but it's hard to.
It's weird. It's kind of interesting to hear that. Just my taste in music is very not that.
Yeah, no.
I listen to mostly very heavy metal, death metal, black metal, thrash, maybe some jazz, maybe some stuff like that. So, but it's so, I understand why some people may not like it, but to me, it is so effortlessly charming. I can't help but like it, and I think that's it. It's such a, it is kind of like Ooblets, which I guess that's on my, I should pick that up and check it out too. It's like these weird, cute little games that seem like they would be a delight. I'm looking. That's kind of what I'm looking for. Sometimes, yes, I'm playing a game where I can actively decapitate people, but at the same time, I wanna play around with these weird little formless pet animal shaped things too.
We've had some internal conversations about this trend in in gaming. How can you go from Disco Elysium to Bug Snacks? We've had this trend, this internal conversation about this trend in game design, especially in the indie scene, about these very lighthearted, sort of joyful, childlike, for lack of a better term, experiences like Ooblets and Bug Snacks and a Short Hike, and there's a lot of these games that are coming to the forefront now, that are. And we've seen some more on the way with, I mean, it's not an indie game, but Everwild from Rare,
Yes.
very much seems like in that vein. The Goodbye Volcano High, and the Sony side is very much there.
Yeah.
This softer games, like we went through a big phase of like, can a game be something more than shooting and sports and racing, and that's kind of where we entered the industry, and we're like, yeah, here's a story about gritty real life and how everything sucks, and and now I think we're hitting this other phase where it's like, okay, so can we tell stories about things that aren't depressing? And it's like, yeah, here you go, have some sunshine and rainbows and dancing music. So I'm curious on your take on this trend. Is it good for gaming? Do you think this
Oh
is
yeah.
yeah?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Look. I mean, I have gravitated for a long time being a very stereotypical straight guy who listens to music about ripping people's faces off to games that featured people ripping their faces off. I mean, Mortal Kombat, Doom, all that stuff, right? And, and same thing. I loved, I loved other games where, that's the thing is like I always played the perpetual good guy.
Mm.
Like in the Mass Effects, I was always like my first playthrough, Paragon, all the way. Just like I gotta be good. That's who I am. I'm Luke Skywalker. When I played Diablo 3, which I still do on occasion, there's that one area where you rescue people, that you can rescue people from cages, and if it's not, it's not necessarily always part of the objective. I have to rescue everyone. It doesn't matter. I just have to make sure there are no people that are still in cages in that area every single time. And so I think that, I do enjoy exploring these grittier themes. I think that there's, there's a lot of value there, but you can't always, or maybe you can, but I can't always live there.
Right.
So to surface up, I think it's great, because a lot of times I think these kinds of lighter feel in their games, have not ever really been considered like serious. Despite the fact that a lot of thought, a lot of effort, a lot of gameplay, real mechanics have gone into them. So I think now that people are realizing that they're really fun, and they, they're not for everyone, right?
Right.
But you can appeal to a whole bunch of different people with it, and they can understand something that can be still really deep, whether it's mechanically or whether it's a different kind of lesson or a different kind of psyche attached to it. I love it. I think it's fantastic.
Right. Well, I mean, and I don't think that like our hardcore games are like going away either. Like I mean, we got Doom Eternal this year. Scorn's on the way. Either the Mortal Shell. There's enough Dark Souls style, stuff to last you a long time. I mean, it's always cool to see new stuff in games. Jake is suggesting that I stop making playing so hard and make a twee game for babies. Well, okay. I'm always looking a little to the future beyond, right. It's the more diversification in the industry, right? I mean, yeah, maybe it does come hand in hand with more women getting into development, more minorities getting into development, more different people getting into development, LGBT groups getting into development. It diversifies the flavors and the palettes of what people want to play and make. That's probably right. Or at least some part of it. Or, I think it's also just a natural evolution. Like, we, in time, we will move even beyond this phase of game design aesthetic and into something. If I have to guess, looking at the Gen Z humor, it's going to be wildly abstract, deep fried games.
Yeah.
That make literally no sense all the time, and that's the fun.
Yeah, Frog Fractions is going to look positively mundane compared to some of the stuff
Right?
that's
Yeah,
coming out.
exactly. I'm looking forward to that. But I think it's just the way things go. We it happens in art, right? Like you look at certain decades of paintings and you're like, oh yeah, this is an abstractionist or realist painting, and it it changes. Deep fried games, yes. um, and it's hard. I guess it's really hard to be on the cutting edge of that. But when the period that is able to put you in vogue is available, like, man, that's the your time to shine. Like, why not jump on that bandwagon and
Yeah.
do your thing?
Oh, yeah. I definitely agree that it's a diversification in the game development space. People have different kinds of stories they want to tell, and now they're empowered to do so.
Mm.
And I think it is evolving. And I think it's two things, right? It's the evolution, and part of that evolution is lowering that barrier of entry. That gatekeeping, trying to get rid of that gatekeeping altogether.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I look at it similar to comic books. I'm a huge comics fan, and in the '90s, when I was in high school and in college, it was always like grim and gritty. Everything had sharp edges,
Right.
and everything was always as dark as possible. And it got to a point where it was a caricature of itself, right? It went over the top. It stopped being its own thing, and there is I see more and more visibility for these comic artists and creators who've probably always been here on the slice of the pie that allows people to see their work, being elevated, and then that's influencing other people who would say, well, comics aren't for me because I don't necessarily want to see blood and guts all the time. Oh, comics can be these other things. That's really great. I'm going to put my own spin on it, and I think it happens with games. I think it's true. Games don't always have to be a first-person shooter or a racing game or football or basketball. They can be a narrative. They can be a narrative game. They can be a game that's all about telling a story. They can be a game about telling my own story. They can be puzzles. They can be whatever it is. And I think this is when you're gonna obviously it's gotten to a point where, like, you look at your Steam library of things that you always want to play, and it's 1,000
Yeah.
games long. But at the same time, it's I look at that and, like, when I was a teenager, I never would have I got a screwdriver. I never would have expected this to be a thing, and I'm so happy that I can buy it and try it.
Yeah. I mean, I agree that it is really good for broadening the range of games that we have access to. The only visible downside to the floodgates being open, the barriers of entry being dropped, is the oversaturation in the industry now.
Oh yeah.
Which is, like, it's so great that we've got the ability for everybody to make these wide variety of games. But, like, as that audience fractures, as finally we all get things catered to our own individual taste, those groups of players get smaller and smaller and smaller, and we all fracture out into little tiny, smaller tribes. Is it a? I mean, it's an inevitable trade-off, but, like, I feel like this comes up almost every one of these chats I do, where it's like, what do we do? I don't want to call it a situation, but, like, do we just accept that, like, games are just going to have smaller player bases, as time goes on?
It's interesting. Yeah, I've thought about it a lot. Obviously, I don't have a solution to it. But I think this comes back to digital versus physical kind of spaces for conventions and things of that nature, right? And one of the things that is a problem, I think, when you all of a sudden have this niche that is exactly the thing that you want, right? There's a potential that you're no longer exploring other things
Right,
necessarily,
right, right,
right?
right.
I only like to play dating sims, so I'm gonna play 9,000 dating sims. Um, because now I have them, I'm not gonna try something else. Yeah, I don't know how realistic that is, but that's kind of a thought that I have. So something like the Mega Booth or like PAX allows you like, okay, I'm gonna go and check these things out that I know, but then something's gonna catch your eye, like, oh, well that looks kind of cool. I've never thought about this before. Oh, what do you know? I like a football game.
Right.
You know, it, and I don't. I think we're so stuck in the old way of curation and kind of showing how things are. We don't know how to. We haven't adapted to it yet. I don't know what that adaptation is, um, and I don't know how to help showcase different kinds of games to people. You know, like you said, the algorithms of Steam are not. They're just going to show you things that are similar to things that you're playing.
Yeah,
right.
It pulls you more into that vortex of similarity.
Yeah, and some people want that. You know, some people like that, but you know, it kind of ruins. You know, variety is the spice of life. It kind of ruins that sense of finding something that you never thought was possible before, unless you're already of that mindset that you seek out the weird and the different. You know.
Yeah. I don't know how to solve this either. If we knew how to solve this, we'd be far more successful and rich. Yeah, I guess that's just the way things are going to be for a little while, until the algorithms change or some new phase in sorting happens. Yeah, I don't know. Still, it's wonderful having access to a near infinite supply of taste and flavor. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have much else to go on. Are you looking forward to anything next gen? Have you made a decision on a console? Are you a wait and see?
You know, I'm that nerd who buys. I have a PS4, I have an Xbox One, and I have a Switch. I don't know how sustainable that lifestyle is.
Right.
You know, it's expensive, but actually, the only thing I'm really looking forward to now is building a new PC.
Yeah.
This one's been chugging along for a while, and I am really looking forward to starting from the ground up again. New case, new motherboard. I'm going to try my hand at building a liquid cooling system.
Okay.
You know, it's been a while since I've got really into like the nuts and bolts of building a computer. You know, I've you know, without you know, because it's really plug and play now compared to what it used to be back in the day. So I'm really interested in like, are the tubes the right length to pump this weird thing that I've never done before? So that's mostly what I'm looking for. It is unfortunately far more expensive, and you see this pile of board games right here. These are all for sale.
Oh.
These are all the ones. This is my Kickstarter pile of shame mixed with a bunch of other stuff, and that's part of my build a PC fund.
Gotcha. and where can people find these games?
I'm not shipping.
We're here to help promote Eric's PC building fund. It's a great. I think it's a good time for PC building, except for GPU prices. I think everything else is like more amazing than it's ever been. Like fun side fact, like my previous machine died the day we shipped Sam. Like it died while we were like packaging the final build.
Man.
It had like gone on as long as it could. So I recently had to like, you know, upgrade a little and you know, mixing some old crap with some new crap. And it's a really great time for we can have a long conversation off stream about parts and what you're looking at. But I really do think it's a wonderful time for building PCs, except for the GPU prices. And
oh my gosh,
you know what? Maybe you don't focus so much on the GPU, man. There's so much other more beauty in a computer to enjoy. But Zed Craze brought up a really wonderful point here. He says he thinks Game Pass is kind of good, as there's a variety of games, and because you can just install them and give them a try, and it promotes your freedom to look outside the box.
I agree with that for sure.
RX 588 gig. Is that your GPU right now, Magnetic? I think it's I'm I'm 50-50 on the as a developer. I'm 50-50 on the Game Pass concept. I like that it's like, here's a big bag of money, and we'll put your game on for X number of months or whatever. That's really great. That's a nice, one-to-one transaction. And it's very simple. On the other side of things, though, it's like, what happens after this model becomes the norm, right? Where people are just like, I'm subscribed to Game Pass. Why am I going to ever visit Steam again? Why am I ever going to buy a game again? Right? Those game sales are going to drop, especially as I see the conversation around next gen really, really forming around, oh my God, Game Pass is like this killer app. Like,
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, I didn't think, I hate to say it, I haven't thought about it that way. Well, in a way I have, like with at the Epic Store, right?
yeah,
I haven't bought a game on the Epic Store.
right.
I'm there for the free games.
But your account
Have I
has,
played any of them? Well, I played The Messenger a whole lot because that
right.
game's awesome. But yeah, it is. I have Game Pass too. That's how I played The Outer Wilds, and that's how I played State of Decay 2. I wasn't sure about The Long Dark because I played the demo and I really liked it. But survival kind of open world games are always like, I don't know where
Right.
the end is, and so I can get lost in it. So I tried it there. But yeah, I hate to admit that it's kind of like, okay, I played this. I don't need to buy it.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
there's got to be a hybrid. Right?
I've done even worse, where it's like, I'd been waiting to play. I haven't played a Far Cry game in forever, and I really kind of actually like, those are a guilty pleasure of mine. So I picked up 1 month of Uplay's subscription service, played 2 full Far Cry games, and then canceled my subscription immediately after. And it's like, okay, well, I'm just skating out without having to like buy these games at full price. And as these models become heavily adopted, because like Zed Craze, they're great for consumers, it will eventually become, I think, so normalized that we're going to see situations where it's going to be how does the compensation work for developers? Is it a pay per minute, or what's your share of the pie? Is it like going to be like a Spotify model? And how does that change how games are made?
Yeah, it's weird, right? It's like, would it change so that ownership is no longer, ownership is no longer a thing in many cases. You're just
Right.
downloading it bits, right? So, would that mean then, to keep playing games or developing games, would you just get a salary so that you just keep making them? So it's not tied necessarily, or unless there's and I don't know, that just sounds gross. Now that I just said it out loud, right? Well, it's like someone's like, oh, keep making games. Us as a publisher, we're just gonna pay you money to make whatever it is that you want. And if your game does really well, then we'll give you more. And if it doesn't do so well, you just stay where you are.
I think that's the friendliest possible version. I think the reality is going to be far worse than that.
Yeah, I know, right? Of course, some corporation will always find a way to make it as bad as possible for the person who's doing the creative work.
Because like, if you go into this like pay per minute played by 100 users or whatever, that changes how you make the games, right? Like all of these artificial longevity, it kills certain genres, but I mean, like, that's just some, the industry is always evolving and changing, but it's like as much as I like the idea of Game Pass and similar models, like, it really feels like all the major publishers like jumped on that like so quickly and so readily that like there's got to be something wrong with it. Like if EA and it comes out with their own Game Pass, like a month or two after Xbox does, like, there's some like evil in there, and that's the scary thing.
I wondered if a thought occurred to me, like, okay, let's say I'm just going to pick GOG for example, right?
Sure.
if you have your recommendations based on the things that you already like, right? Or maybe Itch.io or something like that, and then there's like a limited time. I mean, they do this free weekends and stuff. Be like, hey, this is kind of outside what you're used to, but for this small amount of time, it's free. Try it. This is a different thing. This is a new thing. Maybe that's a way to help discover. Like here's five games that are atypical, right? Or based on I guess if you trust your curators or something like that, based on our decisions. Like this is like not necessarily this is an RPG, but it's different. This is a sim, but it's kind of weird and kind of interesting. So try it for this time. We're going to give you incentive if you try it. If you sit down and play X amount of time on it, if you want to buy it afterwards, we'll give you a discount or something, like a small amount. I don't know. I mean, I'm spitballing, throwing things out, as a way to encourage. I think that if there's an incentive to let people try something outside of the comfort zone, but build in a way so that they're still going to, that they still should or still have to, uh, uh, you know, pay the creative team behind it.
Yeah, what
Maybe.
you're describing is free to play games. Like, really, that's it. Like, it's free to play games here. It's a no cost barrier of entry, right? You come in, and there are definitely ways of paying the developers for extra stuff. Oh, my cat is she there? Oh, okay.
My
and
cat's
yeah, I saw the the thing that's like scary about it is like as bad as like the monetization practices have been in like full AAA games for $60-$80. It's now going to be okay. We're getting these free to play style games, but then Microsoft and Sony and whoever else is running their Game Pass system are raking in $15 a month on that. Like,
yeah.
Anyway, and not to be a real downer on the Game Pass system, because I know how good it is as a consumer. It's kind of scary to see that future as a developer.
Yeah, something's gonna change.
Craze says, I think the bigger disadvantage of Game Pass like services for devs is that these services promote people to make certain games that focus on replayability and game length. Yep, that's exactly something I'm familiar with. And if a game blows up, perhaps it could have earned a lot more than it would have, right, being at a sub-service. That's definitely true.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's a downer to get near on. Anyway, still, you all have the freedom to go and support your local indie devs, to enjoy games and have fun. Well, before games all implode. Yeah, I think it's been a good. Oh, what were you gonna say?
Oh well, I mean, I think that there are a few of us. I don't know how many, and probably not enough to be sustainable. Like, yeah, I use Spotify, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like to have access. But if I find something I like, really, really enjoy, then yeah, I'm gonna go either the Bandcamp and buy it, or I'm gonna get the vinyl, the LP, or something like
Right.
that.
Who gets vinyl?
Because it's like, yeah, I wish I could display mine. It's in a crate over there, but but it's like and I think that there are definitely some people who will do that. They'll discover it on Game Pass, or well, maybe not Game Pass, but so they'll discover it somewhere and be like, you know what, I really need to get this. I really
right,
need to
or
own
I
this
want a
thing.
T-shirt, or I want a plushie,
Yeah.
or right. So we're moving into more like There's always going to be a way to make money, I guess.
But it's not. It's. I think you're right. We're such in a weird place where no one knows exactly how that's going to work,
right.
how that's going to be sustainable.
Right. Well, I mean, we got to face the future eventually. It's all good. I want to thank you for coming on. It's been wonderful catching up. It's been very good to see you again, my friend.
Yeah, dude, this is awesome. I
Uh,
really enjoyed it.
Yeah, likewise. I hope you're well. Is there any exciting things you would like to leave our audience with? Are you? Would you like to tell them about Zwift? Are you?
Oh, I mean, Zwift is Zwift. You know, it's cycling. I'm a big fan of cycling, and it's been a fun project to work on.
Mhm.
You know, even in the limited capacity that I have, it pays the bills, and I actually enjoy the work, which is always always a privilege. Um, I don't know. I think mostly the only thing I really is like, you know, as much as we talk about video games, I think the biggest thing I've been really into lately has been tabletop role-playing
Tabletop.
games.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Jane showed me Black Sand. Uh, Is that something? What did she show me recently?
Oh,
That
was
you
that the thing I
tweeted?
posted?
Yeah, Tome of the
Oh,
Black
dude,
Sand.
I'm gonna go get it. I'm gonna show it on the camera.
Okay.
One sec,
All right.
real
All
quick.
right. All
Real
right.
So, not to make this a plug or anything, but I am working on my own tabletop role-playing game.
Okay.
Hitting it for a long time, and yeah, I've been start and stop, trying to make it unique, trying to make it different, and trying to understand what the point is. So, I have I wouldn't say huge, I have a big collection of role-playing games. Um, a lot of them are replacements for things my parents gave away when I moved out because
Right.
they didn't know that I still wanted them. But this is the one I'm showing. Is I just picked this up. It's called the Tomb of Black Sand. It's going to be backwards for everyone. I don't know
No, it's
because
good.
it's not mirrored. But it's actually an adventure, old school dungeon delving adventure. So, you know, you've got this map, and it kind of goes through each section and kind of gives descriptions and overviews of like the story hooks, and it's got such a decidedly old school feel to it, to its art, and kind of to recapture that feeling that a lot of us have had when we were like 8 to 12 years old, you know, playing D&D for the first time and be like, you know, what's around the corner? I don't know. You know, a lot of role-playing games, you know, modern ones are really awesome in that they focus a lot on story and character development, and less on mechanics and like kind of old grognard kind of things. And yeah, while I love that, I think that's amazing. Sometimes you just want to roll some dice and hope that you don't die
Yep.
by falling into a spike trap or something like that. So this was the cover alone. It's such a you know death metal, black metal aesthetic that I had to get it. And then and then like going through it and reading it, I can't wait to run this for someone. I think it's going to be great to get a total party kill on this.
And is that what system does that run? Fifth Ed, or is it its own?
So it's kind of system agnostic,
Okay,
but it's built for old school D&D.
gotcha. We've
So
been
there's again, if you wanted to do a podcast on role playing games, that would take me 4 hours to talk about it. But there's something called Old School Revival,
okay.
and basically what's happening is the old basic or advanced D&D rules, you know, they're trying kind of reviving the crunchiness of that kind of rule system, just because it's simple and it's perfect for kind of these one shots, right? One shot adventures, and you know, a lot of games, a lot of these independently published modules and things like that are taking advantage of that because it's simple and it's easy and it kind of evokes that 80s feel.
We've been playing this bad boy.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, you're familiar. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Dungeon Crawl Classics has been a real jam, especially if you're into that old style aesthetic. It's been a lot of fun, and we've been a tabletop stream would be fun. I could consider it.
Yeah.
We've
Invite
been
me for that for sure.
okay. Yeah, we've been playing probably for actually almost not 2 years yet, but well over a year. And it's been fun, like with the different systems. And God, I love the use of even weirder dice.
Oh yeah,
the D24s and D30s and
DCC is so much fun. Out the first time, every single one of my guys died.
yeah,
All five.
So for those who have never played it, you start off with 4 level 0 characters that are pretty much like just randomly generated, and then whoever lives pretty much becomes who you get to play. So it's less about like making a character and more about finding a character, which is like really an exciting difference. But yeah, man, like, and you also get weird dice with like 30 sides. That's so good.
Yeah, it's so nice. And when you roll those dice, it's such a there's like such a visceral awesomeness about it.
Mm.
You know, because just the weird shapes and stuff. It's almost like they're arcane. You know, there's that that weird little bit of esoterica, but the game is so approachable. You know.
My 7-sider.
Yeah.
What is this?
it's so it's so nutballs, man. I love it. I love it.
Cool. Yeah, tabletop has been fun, and it's been fun. Like I've always played D&D, and I've played Pathfinder too, but I've really enjoyed being a player in this game for quite a while. But good.
Yeah.
Is there anything this system that you've been working on or setting you've been working on? Can you tell us anything more about it?
Sure. Just a little bit.
Yeah, no spoilers.
So back when I was a kid, I played the West End game Star Wars game. It's a D6 system. I loved it. It was unlike anything I had played before, which is mostly AD&D and stuff. You know, it was so cinematic. And so I wanted to create something based on that. So I created this system based on D6 with different kinds of, you know, but using some of the things I'd learned from more modern games, like not just pass-fail, but, you know, levels of success. You know, you can succeed, but with complications, that kind of thing. And then I realized as I'm like looking for tables for like, oh, what's the difficulty level? Someone had already come up with basically the same system called D6 Plus or D6 Legend, which is a little disappointing, but also at the same time I was like, oh, well, I must have been onto something pretty cool then. So I'm focusing more now. The setting has changed a lot. Because I wasn't sure exactly. I almost created like just a generic fantasy, and then I realized there's so much of that, and what makes it better than anything else, right? Nothing really. So I've been trying to nail down kind of the stories I wanted to tell, and kind of the players I wanted to attract, and that's been the tough part. You know, I've got the mechanics end of it, I think, are pretty good. I just have to, you know, get more people to start playtesting it and checking it out. But it's all the other stuff that really kind of what makes it different and what makes it worthwhile. You know, that's the main main issue right now.
Always an important question.
It's a lot. It's really hard. It's really hard. You know, I have a lot of friends in the tabletop industry. You know whether they're making board games or narrative games or role playing games, you know. I've never thought that their job was easy, but it is. Yeah, it's really hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I love tabletop. I'd like to do more tabletop stuff. But I think it's been over an hour and a half now with this chat. I think I'll let you go and we'll keep you any longer. It's been a pleasure. We'll talk off stream, PC specs and dice for sure.
Oh yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you everybody in the chat for watching. Let's see. I'm gonna be back on. This weekend is gonna be weird. I have no idea what the stream schedule for this weekend is gonna be. It might be some more outdoorsy stuff, which I didn't expect to do, but we'll see what happens. And how my data is outdoors, but I don't think we're going to get much development streaming done. I might do some tomorrow just for the hell of it, just so you can have something. But anyway, it's been a pleasure. I'm going to throw it on the thanks for watching, and then everybody stick around for the raid. All right. Catch you later.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Bye.
See ya.